Hello everyone, welcome to the session. Am I audible? Can somebody confirm this? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, fine. All right, so so welcome to the session. So this is going to be the revision session for the end term that you're going to have on 31st August, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to take the entire course revision into two sections, right? So two parts. So there will be two sessions based on the revision session, right? So the first revision session was supposed to happen on Saturday, but we were in between vivas, and that's why we thought of shifting it to the this week and then starting it today, right? So the first session will cover the first 6 weeks of the course, and how are we going to go about it is I will go through a PPT that we generally go through in the revision sessions. So this PPT kind of covers the topic that you need to focus on with every week, all right? And so what you learn in that particular week, and what topics you have to focus on when you are looking for the question papers, right? So you might be solving some previous terms question papers, but whenever you come across a particular week's content, what topics you have to focus on is what we are going to see today, right? Now once you are done with that content, once you go through that content, then it will be easier for you to solve questions from that particular topic. All right, so that will be the thing that will be delivered from my end, and then I will be taking your doubts, right? So if you want to understand a particular question, if you want to understand any particular concept, you can just raise your hand and then we will go through that. Okay, so I'll very quickly go through the PPT first, and then I'll stop in between after every week's content, and then just maybe you can raise your hands and ask your queries on that. Okay, so we'll cover it that way so that it becomes interactive also, and then we with your doubts the others also can take the advantage of it. All right, so that is how it is going to be. I will share my screen. Just give me a minute.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, can we get the access to this PDF after the session?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So it has already been added. You can refer to it now itself. It is added to the Solvers instructor folder that you have, right? So you can refer to it from there. Okay. I hope my screen is visible. So this is going to be the PPT. Let me just zoom this in. All right, so it says September 2022 because the content is pretty much the same, right? So we have not updated it, and it is basically a PDF, I think. Yeah. So in any way, you cannot update a PDF, right? So yeah. So apart from this, everything is kind of updated in a sense that when it comes to content and everything is updated, but the topic and everything which we focus on when we ask questions will remain same, right? So what is the agenda of this particular session is to give a basic walkthrough of the course content. All right. So you need to understand what you have learned so far from week 1 to week 12. And then based on that, from where exactly the questions come or what topics are kind of the hot topics for the end term and quizzes. All right. So that is what you're going to learn today. Then there are important concepts that we'll see side by side. Okay. And then we will proceed. All right. So the very first week is the basics of web, right? So when you started off this course, you came across so many new terms that are there for web development, right? So coming to what are apps in general, right? So in general, what is an application? What is the definition of application? When do you call particular thing as application, and when it is simply a website, right? So those things you saw. And then when it comes to talking about a web application or the platforms of application, there are multiple platforms, right? So it can be a web application, it can be a mobile application, or it can be any embedded application which runs in your system, right? But the major focus of this course is the web applications, right? So what are web applications, how do they run, and throughout the course we have created, or our focus was creating web application. All right, then what is basically a component of app, right? So an app has multiple components. You have seen that quite in detail in the design pattern, right? So if you are, let's say, doing the for all those of you who are doing the project, you kind of understand what are components of an application. And for those who are not doing the project, you may have seen the lab assignments, right? So in week 4, week 5, week 7, the lab assignments, you may have created a full-fledged application where you see that there is a database component, there is a view component where you create all the templates, and then there is controllers, right? So the entire application can be broken down into three major aspects. That is the model, view, and controller. And that is what is the design pattern that we have followed so far, right? And it is probably, with respect to app dev 1 or app dev 2 courses, the project, whatever project you're going to create, whatever application you're going to create, MVC just suits the, or just serves the purpose, right? So you can very easily break your application into three different sections and work on them parallelly without affecting the other, all right? So, right. So after components of application, we saw what is a design pattern, okay, in general. And what design pattern did we follow? We followed MVC design pattern, which is the model, view, and controller. All right. Now, entire web application or entire course, which is development of web application, is dependent on an architecture called as client server, right? So you see, whenever you are developing an application, you have a local host where the application resides, and then there are clients with the help of there are clients that access the application with the help of browser, right? So in this case, it is happening, everything was happening in a single machine. But in general, when an application is hosted, what happens? There is a server where the application and the entire logic of the application resides, and then there are multiple clients who access the application over a server, right? So the applications that follow this pattern is what is called as client server application, or and the architecture is called as client server architecture, right? So all the applications that are built on this architecture are client server. Majority of the applications are built on this. All right, so you have a single server or a set of server residing at one place. They're connected with each other, but then there are multiple clients at multiple places which can access the various servers of this application and the components of this application. All right, so that is what we saw. So first week was completely basic, as in it gave you some general terminologies on what web development as such is, what is web architecture, what is design pattern, right? So we did not go into coding a lot, but this is what you saw. All right, now this is the content on the left hand side. Whatever you see is the content of the of the course. All right, but what things you need to know when it comes to solving a paper, when it comes to solving a quiz question or an NTEM paper, what exactly do you need to know? All right, so the first thing that you need to know is what are protocols. All right, so we see multiple protocols, and the protocol that we have worked on is the HTTP. All right, we haven't gone into the security part, so we haven't seen the HTTPS as such, but yes, we have seen HTTP. Okay, so what is an HTTP protocol and what are HTTP verbs, right? So what is verb? Basically the methods, the HTTP methods, get, put, post, delete, all those things we saw while creating a full-fledged application, right? So so you can see that these are hyperlinks, right? So you'll be having access to this PPT. You can see in the Solve with Instructor source code. And what actually are these hyperlinks? So let's say if you click on this, it will take you to a video, probably from our sessions or from external resources or some legit resources that we generally follow, or the documentations that we follow. It will take you to that part and help you to understand it better. All right, so this kind of helps you to not deviate a lot from the major topics, and then be able to stick with whatever is important with respect to code building and with respect to quiz solving. All right, so the first thing that you need to know is what are protocols. Okay, then there are HTTP verbs. Then how do you make a request with the help of command line, right? So this curl is basically command line URL, right? So curl stands for curls is a utility that allows you to make HTTP requests through command line interface. All right, so that is something that you need to know. And if you click on this, let's say I'll just click on this and show you. All right, so if you click on this, it will take you to a documentation that gives you a brief understanding of what that is, and probably with the help of some examples also. All right, so the basics thing that you need to understand when it comes to what is curl. Okay, how do you make a request? Okay, so here you see how do you make a request, a simple request, right? Then there are requests where you specify the data, where you specify the HTTP method. All those things are there, which are right. So you see this is get, simply fetching a resource. Then there is head. Then further, when you go forward, you will see post. All right. So this kind of gives you what is a alternate way of doing that with the help of form. But then what exactly happened when the post request is sent through form is this. All right, so here you are not only mentioning this URL, you are mentioning the data, and you're also giving the method. All right, so it will give you some examples, and if you try this out, you'll understand what exactly curl is. All right, obviously you don't need to go into a lot details of this, because we now have browsers to make HTTP requests. We now have third-party applications like Postman or Thunder client to make the request, right? So I don't need to go into a lot of details of this, but yes, some basic, at least how do you make a get request and how do you make a post request? Because when you make a post request, there are a lot more things to be added, right? You specify the HTTP method, you specify the data. How should the data be specified is something that you need to understand. Okay, so this is something that you should go through and understand. Okay, then there are so many numericals that you would have seen in quiz 1, quiz 2. You may have come across the numericals which cater to things like latency and bandwidth. All right, so these are two different and important concepts when it comes to networking. All right, so when you make a when you want to establish a network, you need to look at things like performance parameters, what performance parameters are there, and how do they help in making the request response cycle better, right? How do they help you in serving the information better? All right, or obviously with the better here, I would mean only the pace, all right, or the speed with which the data is coming to us is what we're talking about, right? So there are two major things that we look at. One is the latency and the bandwidth. Okay, so these are the things that you need to understand or know, or you should have gone through this topics when it comes to question solving. All right, and that is all for the week 1. Okay, so when it comes to week 1, these are the things that we have studied, and these are the things that you need to know when it comes to solving paper. All right, I'll go to second week very quickly, and then we'll take some questions. Okay, so the second week is more of now getting into the major crux of application development when it comes to web, right? So web application development has these two important pillars, that is HTML and CSS. Also, obviously we have not seen CSS in a lot detail, but sufficient enough to create a good responsive UI. All right, so what did we study in week 2? We started off with information representation, right? So what exactly is the information, and also what is the context, right? So when you when you look at a particular data, you need to not only understand what that data stands for, okay, what it means and everything, but you also need to understand what is the context of the data. In what context are you talking about data, right? So when it comes, for example, we have taken this example of, let's say, a letter or a alphabet A, right? An alphabet A would mean a simple alphabet when it comes to alphabetical letters, but does it have a different meaning, right? When it comes to something else. So the context along with the data is very important. That is what is called as information representations. How do you represent the information? Right. Second thing we talk about is the efficiency. So efficiency of coding, that is how small can a document be when it comes to encoding a document, right? So how small, how compact you can make it, right? So let's say if you want to store some data and you are encoding it with, let's say, UTF-8. All right, can you encode it with let's say ASCII 7-bit or ASCII 8-bit? Can you encode it with that so that you reduce the size of the document? Is what is called as efficiency of document. All right, efficiency of storing. Okay, so this term efficiency in this regard refers to how compact can you make your document so that it can be stored with least number of bits. All right. Then there is markup, right? So we introduce HTML, what an HTML is, what HTML tags are. Give me a minute. I just wanted to make sure I'm still in the app, still in the meet. All right. So what is HTML? How do you create an HTML document? Then there are various versions of HTML. We haven't gone into details of versioning in HTML. Simply, we worked on HTML5, right? And that is all you need to know. You don't have to, get into a lot of versions of HTML4, HTMX, XML, SGML. You don't need to go into details of that. You just need to understand what simple HTML is. All right, then what is a DOM, right? So what you see or what you write in VS Code in index.html, how it is interpreted in the browser level is that interpretation is what is called as DOM, right? So, I mean, in simple terms, when you read the definition of DOM, it tells you it is a tree-like structure, that every node of the tree stores the element, and then there is a data associated with it. All right. But it is basically a language of HTML that browsers understand, okay, and interpret. How do browsers render a particular HTML file? They actually render the DOM. They understand the DOM. All right. Then there is styling and aesthetics with CSS. So we saw some basics of CSS, like precedence in CSS, selectors in CSS. All right. Then what is class ID, inline styling, external styling, internal styling, right? Then there are some major major CSS properties like display property, background color, font color, right? And how do you give precedence, how do you provide radius, how do you provide border, all these things we saw. How do you align text, all these things we saw, which is more than sufficient when it comes to creating a simple web application. All right. And everything you do is for making a better UI, right? And a better UI is another name for responsive design, right? So when you have a responsive web page, it automatically gives you a very good user experience. All right. So these are the things that we superficially saw in the content, but what things do we need to know? Right. So we need to know basics of number system, right? What number systems are and how do you convert from one number system to the other, right? So if somebody asks you how do you convert from binary to octal or octal to decimal or hexadecimal to binary, you should know all these conversions. Okay, so you can expect questions from there, and to be able to do these conversions will definitely give you an idea of how number systems work. All right. Then there is this Unicode to UTF conversion. I wouldn't say very much important when it comes to quiz and end term. There won't be a lot of questions created on this topic, but yes, understanding this is important because it actually is the practical understanding of information representation, right? So when you go through this information representation, when you want to study this, it is always good to understand what is Unicode thing and what is UTF. All right. Then creating the HTML document with the help of various HTML tags is what we saw. So you should understand this. How do you create them? How do you nest them? How do you write the content of a particular element? How do you give attributes of a particular element? All right. So all these things there is something that you need to understand. All right. Then in CSS, the major question that you will see in CSS is circulating around this concept of precedence. All right. What is the precedence of inline versus internal versus external, and what is the precedence when it comes to selectors? So whether it is an element selector, ID selector, or class selector. All right. So number
What
of
about
questions you will see. Yeah, I'll just come to you. Give me a minute. I'll just finish this and I'll just ask questions. Okay. All right, and once you're done with CSS, then you will see the developer tools. So developer tools is kind of, as the name suggests, right? It is a tool provided by browser to understand what is happening with the web page, right? So at any moment, if I do a right click and inspect, I should be able to navigate to any element of the HTML that is getting rendered there, any styling associated with it, any programmatic nature associated with it, all right? So at this point in week 2, we may have seen only HTML and CSS, but when you go to further levels like AppDev 2 and everything, you will also see how programmatic nature is added to it with JavaScript, right? So how JavaScript is working on a particular element, how it is interacting with a particular element is also something that developer tools help you with. Okay, so this is something that you have seen in week 2, and things to know is an important topic. All these are you can say URL, right? These are hyperlinks. Go through them and try to understand, just at least superficially go through them, because I know there is you might be having multiple courses at any particular time, right? So for the ET you might be giving 2 courses at a time, 3 courses at a time, but superficially if you go through these videos, it will definitely help you. It will kind of give you an idea, okay, what direction I should look at when it comes to this topic. All right, so this is what you have to go through. Okay, so we're done with first 2 weeks. I'll just take doubts now. Okay, if you have any query, just raise your hand. I'll come to you one by one. Himanshu, go ahead. Yeah, Himanshu, you can ask your
yes,
query.
yes, my browser hand.
Hmm.
There, I saw a few questions regarding pseudo selectors. There was question about validate and on click on hover. These kind of things were there in some PYQs.
Hmm.
So, do we need to like prepare this pseudo selector?
Not really. See, I understood your question. You don't really need to get into details of that. When such a question comes, it will also tell you what it does. Okay. So if you have the reference of any PYQ at this point, you can just go through it and see whenever there is an on-click event given, Okay, it is not expected for you to know exactly what on-click event does, but it will also, in the question, it will mention what it does and how do you interpret it. Okay, it will be given to you. So anything that comes beyond what is taught, it will be giving you sufficient information across it. All right.
Oh,
All right. So things like on-click events or the things you were talking about, right? Pseudo
validate.
classes and all those things. Validate. Validate is a fine because see, you have this content in week 6, sorry, week 7 and week 8, right? So there is validation there. So front end validation, back end validation is a part of your
That
content. So
is
you,
okay, but it is done through CSS. The pseudo selector of validation is there to see whether the or like the input is validating or not. That thing, when I saw, it was new to me. So,
that
okay,
is no. So if there is any HTML validation, it is HTML5 validation. So it is again a valid part for your course. Okay, so give me a reference to the question. Maybe I can then tell you whether it is important or
I
not.
don't have that, but it used this uh, colon validate. This is CSS validate. This class they
Hmm.
use for input. I mean, after class they write that, so that's the
Hmm.
pseudo
Yeah,
selector.
but okay. So see, when you look at this, it will it kind of gives you an idea, right? What you're trying to do. So that's what.
But
So it
but
will
it's
tell you that okay, you're trying to validate, and what are you trying to validate will be given in the CSS styling, right? So
yes,
along with this, you will also have a styling associated to that, and what should happen when it so
validate and
when it validates, what should happen is something that will be given to you.
yes sir, yes.
Okay, so you might not need to know that in detail, but if you go through the question, if you go through the given data, you will be able to at least infer from okay what it might be doing. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, I understand. So it's a part of validation. It's fine. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other query in first 2 weeks? If not, we'll proceed. No? Okay, fine. Right, so we'll proceed with the week 3. Okay, so week 3 is very important when it comes to creating the front end. Okay, because till this point up to week 2 you will have a static HTML page, right? Static HTML page, static data, and static styling to it. Okay, but now how do you give a dynamic part to it? How do you add data on the go? Right, so when there is an HTML page created, and let's say you have created a table of 10 elements. Okay, now let's say if these elements increase from 10 to 30, how do you handle that situation? Okay, so statically you cannot keep on adding things in the HTML, right? So you need to have some programmatic nature given to the HTML to be able to do that, right? And to the ability of providing an a programmatic part to an HTML is done by templating engines. Okay, and this is where in week 3 we introduced templating engine, which is what is called as Jinja 2. Okay, so before we get into Jinja 2, we talk about things like what is user interface and user interaction, right? Types of view, what kind of views are there, whether it is a static view or a dynamic view or a fully dynamic view or something like that, right? So you will have these things completely given or covered in the sessions. All right, then there is what is aesthetics, what is accessibility, okay, what is Jacob Nielsen's heuristics. You don't need to do it by heart, but at least go through it so that you get an idea of what these heuristics are. And if questions come around these things, you will generally see theoretical questions with very less weightage, if at all you see a question around this. But at least if you go through that, it is just like a right, you will get a complete marks for it if you know it, right? So it is like a very easy thing once you know it. Okay, so it's better to always go through this part, Jacob Nielsen's heuristics and NW3C consortium, right? So this is something that you will see in week 3 content as a theoretical part. Okay, but now what do you need to know? What do you need to understand programmatically to be able to solve questions? Okay, because week 3 onwards or week 2 itself onwards, we will see lot of programmatic questions. Okay, so theory part is done now, numerical part is done. We'll mostly see programmatic questions where we need to understand the code and interpret the output. Okay, so it starts off with understanding what exactly is simple template creation. All right. So you will do that with PyHTML. How does PyHTML help you in creating error-free HTML using Python? Right. So you simply write Python methods at one point, but at the end result, it gives you an error-free HTML. All right. So that is what is PyHTML. Again, all these things are hyperlinks. So you can just go through them and see how they work. All right, then you see template creation using string module, which is an inbuilt module of Python that allows you to create some basic templates. Definitely not from, not when it comes to larger HTML files, or in fact, even simpler HTML files with lot of data, right? So it won't help you there. It will help you within Python. Okay, it will help you with things like string manipulation. How do you manipulate a string? How do you variably add data at multiple places in the string? For this minor purposes, you will understand. You will read the string module. Okay, but once you understand the principle of what is string module, then it becomes easy to jump onto things like Jinja. Okay, because a component of Jinja is that is very similar to string module is also there in the syllabus, and understanding of that will help you to use Jinja too in creating larger HTML files. All right, so the sequence that you follow is the same given here, right? So you understand what templating is with PyHTML. That is not really template as such. I would say creating simply HTML. Now, what do you mean by error free? Generally, you don't see a lot of errors in HTML, right? But what is an error free HTML? Assume a situation where you create a table, all right, and within a table, if you, let's say, give an opening table tag, okay, angle brackets, table, angle brackets, all right, but once you write the data of the table, you forgot to give a closing table tag. All right, so it might not throw any error to you. It will not show any particular or significant change in the representation of data, but inside, right, implicitly it is an error prone HTML, or it is an HTML with error, right? Because later on, let's say when you try to style it, okay, the moment you try to give it a color, it will not only take the table, it will also take the every element that is following, right? So you need to understand this scenario that when it comes to simply rendering the data, you might not see a lot of errors in HTML. Okay, but when it comes to styling or selecting a particular element in HTML, you need to make sure that all the elements are closed. All the non-self closing elements are closed properly. Right, so you also have to give the slash table element to make sure that you specify in the HTML that, okay, this is where I'm ending my table. Okay, so that is an error-free HTML. You might forget or you might skip doing this when you are manually writing the HTML, but when you do it with PyHTML, this will not happen. Okay, but obviously it will have some limitations. You cannot keep on creating very complicated HTML with PyHTML. All right, so the only the only advantage of using PyHTML is you get a error-free HTML, but again, the HTML has to be very simple. Okay, so with this idea, you move on to string module that will give you a basics of templating. All right, with the basics of templating, you move on to Jinja 2, which is again a further complicated way of dealing with templates. Okay, now Jinja 2 is quite extensive because it allows you to not only create complicated templates, but it also allows you to do things like run loops within the HTML, which otherwise was not possible. Right, if conditions, else condition within the HTML, right, then render something based on a particular condition, write function like things in the HTML, all right, function like entities in the HTML. Then there are things like filters that you see. So I've already added that. You definitely have to go through this. This is an important topic when it comes to templating. All right, and then there is one larger topic, larger when it comes to creating application. You don't see a lot of questions around this. Okay, because creating a question on this itself becomes a very tedious job, so we don't do that generally. You won't see a lot of questions on template inheritance, but the topics that are there on the top, the first 5 topics, are very important when it comes to questions. All right, so you'll see all level of questions, smaller questions, easy questions, medium questions, questions with a large amount of data, small amount of data, all sort of question you will see around this. That is the reason week 3 and week 4 are very important when it comes to when it comes to AppDev 1. All right, so again, these are hyperlinks. You have to go through this. Let's say if I just click on this, it will take you to the documentation where filters are discussed. All right, so you see this. Let me zoom this a bit. Okay, so these are filters. What filters are? how it can help you, and how it will be once you use it, once you understand how to use filters, writing code becomes a comparatively easier. Okay, I won't say it is a a problem solver, but yes, it will help you with in writing better code. Okay, it will help you, and it will internally handle certain situation with otherwise you'll have to follow in otherwise you'll have to handle in Python. Okay, so those things will be dealt with in filters. Okay, you have to go through this, and it will give you a lot of use cases also, how it works, how it does not work. And there is this list of built-in filters. You don't need to by heart every one of it, but let's say the moment you go through its name, you'll understand what it might be doing, right? So you just need to see how to use a filter. But for example, if you go through any particular filter, you'll understand what it does, right? So for example, if I go to let's say list or length for that matter, right? So it will give you a length of the list that you have provided in Jinja, right? In sum, it will give you sum of the elements in the list, right? Slice, it will slice to particular from one particular index to other particular index, right? So all these things, most of this which are generally used or generally have been asked in papers, they are self-explanatory by their name, right? So you don't need to by heart them. You just need to go through and see how a particular filter is used. Okay, and then you will be able to solve most of the questions. Coming back to this PPT. All right, so this is what you need to do in week 3's content. All right, understand the basics and then try questions on this. Okay, this will kind of guide you in right direction. It will not take you to things that are not required paper wise. Okay, coming to week 4. All right, week 4 is more of a database. So I'm sure all of you might be either might have done the DBMS course or are doing it parallelly, right? And when it comes to solving DBMS questions, the questions asked at the app dev level are very simple, right? So you probably may have seen in the week quiz 1 revision also, right? We have not gone to the complexity level beyond that. Okay, so those are the maximum complex questions that would come, but generally very recently I've stopped asking questions directly on the SQL queries. Okay, because that you already are doing in DBMs, right? So there is no point in repeating things. But what is more important when it comes to week 4 is understanding what these elements are, what is persistent storage, what are mechanisms of persistent storage, how do you differentiate between SQL and NoSQL databases. All right, and then ER diagrams. ER diagrams are important because you will then be creating a project on this particular part, right? What is important to you is this ORMs, okay? Because these are a conjunction between your Python code and database, right? This will allow you to connect your database, which you have been so far doing with DBMS, to now with Python, because now you are writing the entire code in Python. So how do you connect your Python code, or how do you understand the database with the help of Python? So this is a kind of bridge between a database system, okay, or a database and a programming language like Python. All right, so ORMs, understanding of ORMs is very important. Okay, in week 4, if you see, when it comes to live sessions and everything, we have introduced Flask, right? So basic endpoint creation, clubbing the URL with a particular controller, all those things we have already done. All right, so when it comes to week 4, you need to understand two major things. One is the ORMs, okay, and secondly, you will need to understand basic Flask application. Okay, I've not added it here, things to know. Why is that? Because in week 5 you will be doing that extensively. Okay, so you don't need to write it here, but when it comes to week 5, you will see a lot of things in Flask only. Okay, so I'll cover this week 5 and then again I'll stop for questions. Okay, now what is week 5 all about? Week 5 is all about controllers. So actual development of Flask applications start with week 5. Okay, because this is where you will not only understand how to connect your endpoints or the backend with your front end, but also do that with the help of database, right? So you see that there is Flask SQL Alchemy introduced here, Flask basics introduced here. There are decorators, things like decorators that we very casually use in Flask, but what exactly are decorators and how do you work with decorators is something that you'll see here with this hyperlink. I'm not sure what this is. Yeah, so this is a text on explaining how decorators work, right? So it will start off with very simple functions and then take you to all the way to understanding how we are creating decorators, right? So that is what is there in this particular part. But week 5 is more of understanding the actual controller part of your application and doing that with the help of Flask, right? So it will give you a better understanding of what MVC design pattern is, because at this point you may have not only dealt with views, you will have also dealt with database part, and now you're coming to controllers. So the entire MVC component is getting covered in week 5. All right, so it tells you what controllers are, how do you make a request to the web, all right, how do you create an endpoint that has a static part, that has dynamic part, that has query parameters, okay, how to handle form data, all these things you'll see. How does a controller make query to a database with the help of ORMs? All these things we'll see in week 5 content. All right, and then how to do the CRUD operations, obviously. So the ORM part and the Flask SQL alchemy together will take you to help you to achieve this, right? How to do CRUD operations and how to create routes and controllers. Okay, so when it comes to understanding the content, this is the thing that you need to go through textually meaning understanding what these things are. But when it comes to programmatic understanding, you need to know Flask basics and Flask SQL alchemy. I think this Flask SQL alchemy will take you to a playlist of videos which we have covered in explaining. Pause it again. So this will help you to understand or take you in depth of the SQL alchemy. Now this is one of the live sessions that you have taken previously. If you are not willing to go to an old live session, you can watch live sessions of this term also. All right, so this term's live session will also sufficiently cover everything. Okay, and obviously you have access to best live sessions for the course, right? So you can decide on what to watch, and the content is like common, right? So it's not like every session is giving you a different content. So there is some commonality there in these sessions. What you need to understand is how do you do the CRUD operations, and for doing that CRUD operation, how do you create controllers? Okay, so this is the basis of creating controllers. Okay, so how do you create a controller with a particular route that does a particular CRUD operation? This is what you need to understand. Okay, and these sessions or these links which take you to the session that help you understand this better. Okay, all right. Okay, so if this is clear, let us take some questions if you have any queries. One second. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So about those web accessibility principles, there was a question in previous paper, like
Mhm.
April paper. So
Mhm.
this paper have like asked whether this a code of HTML and asked whether it is operable, understandable, and which accessibility principle it does not follow.
Mhm.
So, like it's saying that it's not following perceivable. There is no reason for that. Like this is image, so I cannot share you directly.
Mhm.
It's April paper. Can you go
Okay.
to that?
I don't have access to papers either. So basically, the thing is, probably that question, I'm not sure if I recall it completely, but with what I recall,
May I
in
share?
that question, yeah, if you have the access, you can share.
Okay. So this question. Now the saying, just a second. Yeah. So which of the accessibility principle this example follows? Understandable is fine. Operable because the route endpoint is not given in the
Hmm.
form.
Hmm.
Same goes for robust. But why not perceivable? What
Hmm.
makes
Okay.
it not perceivable?
All right. Let me check. Which of the following accessibility principle is followed in this example? It says understandable. Okay, so you understand that this is a form.
Hmm.
Operable, it is not, because it does not have neither it has
HTML.
the method nor it has the endpoint. Okay, obviously this code is not robust because it does not have validation. Okay, and perceivable. Okay, so we have input, enter a search word, small, label, search for a word. Okay, probably the reason for that is, it does not give any context on what we are trying to do. Yes, it tells you that you're trying to search a word, but that is done with the help of placeholder. But what exactly does it have any heading on the top? All right, we're not talking about a form here. We're talking about the entire HTML code. Okay, so let's say if it tells you from the code, if it tells you what are we trying to do with with this input tag, okay, then it would have become perceivable because it will tell you what you are trying to do with this form, what exactly you will get once you put certain element into this form. Okay, so in that sense it becomes it might not become perceivable. Okay, so that is my
But
explanation for this.
that is understandable thing, na? A perceivable means
Hmm.
user must be able to perceive it, see it, hear it, or somehow any sense of the user can perceive it. So whether
Hmm.
the information is understandable or not is a separate concern, and that is okay here.
Hmm.
Perceivable means it shouldn't be visible if it is not perceivable or somehow not audible if on screen readers.
Uh,
I have a question. If it can't be perceived, can we understand it? If we are not able to perceive it, can we understand it?
Yeah, it is possible. It is subjective question. I mean, I will not be able to give
So,
you
but
the
I thought
example
it
at
was
this point.
hierarchical, right? If it should be first
Hmm.
perceived. I
Hmm.
can perceive there's something there, but I'm not able to understand it. That is possible. So if I can
Hmm.
understand, obviously I'm able to perceive its existence, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm not able to visualize this. I can understand, but I'm not able to perceive it. I mean, how does it come? I
Hmm. Hmm.
It should be hierarchical. It should be first perceivable, only then it can be either operable or understandable or further robust. If it is not perceivable, the further things doesn't exist, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, what I'm speaking, if you can't hear it, there is a question of you understanding what I'm hearing, saying.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So perceivable is something, is it connecting with the end user?
Right, right. So I at this point I am not able to give you the context why, what exactly is the reason why it is there.
So
Okay, I'll check it and maybe get back to you.
questions like this makes us feel okay. There is
Yeah,
a
yeah, I understand. But so Himanshu, when was this paper? April 2025.
April 2025.
yeah,
April 2025.
Also, there is a ARIA described by that is for screen readers. So that means it is having screen reader. It is making it perceivable for people with disabilities.
yes, yes. Even for a blind or a vision, it does.
This is a quiz question, is it?
Yes.
So
No, end term.
it's the
Yes.
end term. It
Okay.
is deciding whether somebody is a data scientist or not.
And okay. Fine, I'll have to check this. Himanshu, I'll check this and get back. Okay.
Yes. And I have few more things.
Hmm.
In the last quiz 2 exam, there was a question
Hmm.
regarding error handler, and there
Hmm.
was error of 407, which was not defined in class standard, and that it was not allowed in class. So
Okay.
in such things, I know that this won't work, but option says that it should. So what should I do?
Again, you have to give the reference to the question. Okay, because
Okay, so
obviously there must be something right given in the
it
question
was
to
quiz
understand.
2, quiz
Hmm.
2 question this term.
Hmm.
So there, maybe I have that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Uh, so answer keys, quiz 2 answer key. What is this? Uh, IITM Yes, sir. 7. Yeah, this one. This 407 error.
Hmm.
If we try to raise, it will say not standard error. Versioux don't allow it. The base
Okay.
server behind the class.
Okay.
So
So what is the issue with this? Okay, it does not render
what?
itself. It does not abort with that error, is it?
Yes, yes. Abort. It
Have
does
you
not abort with that error.
have you tried this question?
Yeah. It. Let me.
Okay. Can you also tell me the what was the question? Question meaning the question statement of it.
Yes. So we have to run this. Check the consider
Yeah,
the
yeah,
following class application
yeah. Just
and
scroll down. Scroll down.
application.
Okay. So the application is running on 5000. What will be rendered on browser on home user
User
4?
4.
Okay. User 4.
User 4. User 4.
Hmm.
User 4 not in here. So else abort 407. And this
Hmm.
407 is problematic.
Okay. So it's not aborting with 407 is what you're saying. It does not throw that error.
Yeah. 407 is not standard HTTP.
That's okay. That's okay. Standard error we are not talking about. I'm just asking whether it throws 407 or not when you abort with 407.
Just a second. I try to do that. I have to like write the class application in that case.
Hmm. Okay. See, because if it throws, it will be caught. Right?
Yeah, that is true. These error handler
Hmm.
will handle that, but that
Yeah.
happens here that this thing itself create another error and that error not cached here.
No, no. See, error may have been caught, but you see in the return statement we are not using that error, right? We are returning a simple string. You see in the user error 4, we are actually catching that error as a variable argument.
May I OCR this and try?
Hmm. Yeah, you run that and then see. Okay, what it shows.
It's slow. Yeah, it's done. And this above line is
And it stops at 405, so it will not even check for 407.
Yeah, let's see.
see value error 407 is not a
Hmm.
recognized HTTP error code.
Write the
Use the
same
subclass of
Perl statement as the question has given.
hmm?
The question has given one curl statement. You write the same thing.
No, this is not even running the server. How can I use the curl? See, this is run. I mean, before the runtime error. This is Versioux don't allow this. This HTTP and etc.
Okay, can you scroll up? Hmm. Okay. So you give a username. Four zero. See, probably then there is some issue with this question because if this is the issue, then we would have corrected it later.
Yeah,
Okay, because
Can you show the question? Like, what is the question asking?
question is asking to run this application on 5000
hmm,
port. It is
hmm,
not running in first place. Then
hmm,
after
hmm,
it runs, then enter this URL. So if it is not running, then how can I enter the URL?
Then probably there was something issue with this question, and we may have corrected it later. Okay.
Yes,
So let's say you try out with some other error. Will that it will work in other cases, right? So let's say if you
Yes.
do 401, okay,
401.
and then handle the 401 in last line. So then it will work, right?
407. Where? Okay, there. 407. Yeah, it works.
Yeah, so probably there was an issue with this question. I think the one was recognized as 7, misinterpreted like that, and we probably had given marks for this question later. Okay, the problem is, or at this point, what I would want to do is keep a note of such questions. We have not been doing that, but if such questions come and if this is given something like this, so we can always get back, refer to that, and say, okay, no, this question was wrong, and it was corrected later, right? But with what we are doing at this point, it is throwing error, right? This means we definitely had gone through it and then probably had corrected it later. Okay. But see, in the question,
Sir,
conceptually, there was no issue, right? You understood the
No,
idea
concept
behind the
is
question.
yeah, error handling.
Okay, okay, fine. Go ahead, Amit. You were
sir,
saying something?
there were only defined method of post, and if we defaultly there was always get request like in browser. If we
Right,
type that URL, then default it will be a get request. While
right. Yes, yes.
in question that is defined only for post, so that's why maybe that error
Yeah,
is
so
coming.
method not allowed, 405
No,
error.
So
Yeah,
answer
yeah,
is
yeah.
right. Yes.
those
Yeah,
Yeah,
answer
that's
is right.
come
okay. Answer
later.
is right. Okay. But the thing is, the question itself is see, the Flask application itself is not running, right? See, okay, I'll just go back to the question, Himanshu, again. Can you show that question again?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Assuming that 401, 407 works, let's see what should be the answer of this question.
Okay, if it works, then this abort will be handled here, and we will.
Which will be
Okay, this is run
proxy.
using post. Okay, then it should throw a method incorrect method,
Method not allowed
that
error.
is
So it will actually
405.
be caught by 405.
405. Yeah, this please check the web
Yeah,
request.
so it would actually, so let's say 401 was 407 was working, it would have given you, it would have firstly ran the question, the program, right? So the program would have run first. Then when the user would have gone using the browser to /user_4, then that would have been the get method, right? So it would have taken the get method with the, it would have made the request to /home/user4 with get method, and since that method is not allowed, it would have thrown 405, right? Now the 405 is handled with
Yes, sir.
this error
Please
handled.
check the web request. I am
Okay,
running it
yeah,
actually. I can check it. Localhost
Yes, sir.
5000 /, what it is?
user_4. Yeah, but
User
yeah,
home.
home/home/home/user_4.
User_4. And please check the web request, which is
Right.
the
So yeah, so
405.
yeah, so conceptually it is working. I'm not sure if this, I think this 407 was misinterpreted, and it was 401 maybe. I'm not sure. Because
We have
see, why
tried
am I
actually.
saying 401 is because 401 is unauthorized, right? And with this users list, what we are trying to say, these are the authorized users of it. Okay. And if one of the user who is not authorized is trying to access this particular endpoint, right? So it should throw a 401. If you see conventionally, okay. But yes, some issue with this
It is a
407.
typo mistake.
403, sir, it should be, no? If it is unauthorized.
It looks like a
No,
typo.
no. What is
We should not.
403 for unauthorized. I'm not wrong.
401?
Okay, maybe. Yes.
401 is unauthorized. 403 is this thing, forbidden.
Okay.
Okay, so there is a slight difference between this thing. Yeah, so as Bhaskaran sir is suggesting it, saying it might be a
सर
misinterpretation.
मैं
They
हिंदी में बोलना
misinterpreted
चाहता
7
हूँ.
with 1. Sure, go ahead.
जब HTTP मेथड जो अलाउड नहीं होता है, वो जब एक्सेस करने का ट्राई करा जाता है तो 405 होता है, और उसके बाद वही तो आंसर दिया हुआ है ऑप्शन में कि प्लीज चेक द वेब रिक्वेस्ट, तो आंसर सही है मतलब.
Answer is correct,
Uh,
Amit. But yeah. See, answer is correct. The discussion that we are trying to do here is whether 407 should be considered in such cases also, right? So we see we have to be technically correct. And when Himanshu was trying to run the question, it was throwing error, right? So it should actually run first before you could make a request. It should run. Why, if you simply ignore 407 and assume that it will work, you will have to, because in obviously in the quiz paper or in the question when you are giving the exam, you will not run and see. You have to assume that okay, this is running, because in the question we have mentioned, assuming that this application is running on 5000, then what will happen, right? But the discussion is not regarding whether the option was incorrect or not. It is regarding whether the 407 should be considered as a valid valid status code or not. Okay, so when Himanshu
oh,
tried to run this question, he faced error because 407 was not a recognized HTTP error. Okay, so that is the discussion. Question and answer was coming correct, but so whoever may have tried it, they may have faced issues. Those who have did not try it and assume that okay, the way you did, right? So you assume that okay, this is 407. I don't have to do anything with it. I'm trying to send a get request to an endpoint that is only accepting post request. So it would give me 405. Okay, so that understanding is correct. What we are trying to do is whether this application really run or not without errors. Okay.
okay.
Sir,
All right. So that was the discussion.
I have a doubt. What are Jinja macros?
Yeah. So see, Jinja macros topic that you will see question rarely, but okay, let me just explain what that is. It is like a function in Python. All right. So let's say if you want to do a repetitive or a task repetitively, what do? You create a function, right? Same thing. If you want to do it repeatedly in HTML, you will create a macro. So if you see the syntax of macro, it is you can very clearly link it with a Python function or any function. Okay, generally you don't do a lot of reusing of code in a programmatic reuse of code in HTML. That is mostly done with Python only, or whatever backend language we are using. But it is okay, it is there, so we kind of take it. Okay.
Oh. So
All
do
right, so
we
if
need
you have a code reference, you will see that okay, you are creating a macro. Basically you're trying to create a function that can be reused again and again. That's all.
to go through all the filters? Because in last PYQ I saw that they're using defaults, ints, and a few more of those
Yeah, I would
filters.
suggest just go through it, because see, they are not they won't take a lot of time. Okay, and the way
Oh,
of usage is same. You just need to understand with the word, you need to understand what it might be doing. If any of them is not very clear, just go through the documentation and check. Okay, there are some sort of 20-30 filters we have. Most of them by you will be able to understand by the name itself, right? But a few which are not, you can just go through it and see what it does. Okay, from the question itself it becomes very clear what it might be doing. Okay.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I very quickly go through the last week of today, that is week 6, and then we'll take some queries on that also. Okay, my screen is not shared, I'll just share, give me a minute. So what we'll do is first 6 weeks we'll cover in this session, and in the Wednesday session, coming session on Wednesday, we'll cover the remaining 6 weeks. Where is it? Yeah. Okay, so we covered week 5. Okay, and as I said, go through Flask SQL Alchemy. So many questions, revolve around this ORM thing. Okay. All right. Now week 6. Week 6 is about APIs and REST. Okay, very important topic when it comes to actually creating full stack applications, right? So when you have multiple frameworks used for front end, frameworks used for a separate framework used for backend, you have two things, right? You have a backend framework working separately, you have a front end framework working separately, and somehow you want to now communicate with each other. So this is where APIs come into picture. Okay, this is one of the use cases of API. Okay, you won't see a lot of APIs in AppDev 1 course, but in AppDev 2 course, everything is about APIs. So the entire backend that you create is going to be with the help of APIs. What exactly are APIs? They are simply, simply put, they are controllers that return JSON. Okay, why is that? Or how's that? In week 5, up to week 5, we have seen, we have created controllers and endpoints that, so what is the end? What do they return mostly? There are two two possible outcomes that a controller returns, right? Whether it is one is it is the render template, right? So either it renders a template with some data into it, or it redirects to some other endpoint. Okay, so these are the two classic methods you will see when it comes to Flask simple controllers. Okay, so either they render a template because they are inherently using Jinja to render this template, or they are redirecting to some other endpoint. Okay, so these are the two things you'll see. But if you replace this render template method or a redirect method with a JSON body, okay, it is an API. Why is that? Because it is that controller now, it is that part of code, or it is that program, that piece of code snippet that now not only communicates with an HTML, it can communicate with every other element that understands JSON. Okay, so our front end later on you'll see that understands JSON or deals within JSON. Some other endpoints work on JSON, so you can make request to an API with an API, right? So everything that then understands or can communicate with JSON will be able to communicate with the endpoint we have just created, right? So every endpoint, you remove the render template method, you remove the redirect method, and you replace that with a proper JSON. All right. When you do that, it becomes an API. Okay. Simply put. Now there are frameworks that help you to do that. In our case, in the course, we have used this framework called Flask RESTful, right? So this Flask RESTful basically adheres to REST principles, and it will give you, or it will help you to create, APIs in a certain fashion. Okay, it has a way of coding, right? It will associate a particular method to a particular endpoint only, right? So it makes sure that the REST principles are followed. Okay, but what is basically an API? An API is a piece of code. It is a part of your business logic that can communicate with not only its front end, but some other backend also, because the way it communicates is generic, which is JSON, right? Till week 5, whatever we have created were controllers, were simple Flask controllers that were rendering HTML or redirecting. Okay, so their what we can say, their capability of doing things was limited. Okay, they can only render a template which can be only understood by Jinja. They can only redirect to an existing endpoint. Otherwise, they will throw not found. Right. So their use or their functionality or the way they return data was limited. In case of API, it is not. Okay, because when you want two things to communicate, you are not sure that they are created on a same backend. Even the language they might be different. Even the database they are connecting with may be different, right? So it's like two different people trying to communicate. Now, how will they communicate with each other? Only if they know a common language, right? In the case of API, the common language is JSON. All right, so that is what an API is. Then in the lectures, we have covered some REST architectures or constraints of a REST API. Then we have introduced you things like Open API, Swagger. How do you document an API? All right, how do you create an API that is capable enough to do CRUD operations? So the underlying controller logic or the business logic remains the same. What differs in an API and a simple controller is the way they return data, right? The kind of data they return, right? Either it is rendering a template, it is a general controller that we are talking about. If it returns a JSON, then it becomes an API. Okay, because now it is giving you an interface and it is opening its windows for you to communicate, and it does not communicate only to one thing; it can communicate to anything that understands JSON. All right, so this is about the content. All right, what you have seen in the theory lectures, in the live sessions, and everything. Okay, what do you need to know? How do you create a Flask RESTful API, right? How do you create a resource class that we see in Flask RESTful? How do you add multiple HTTP methods, right? So every HTTP method would refer to, every HTTP method in web refers to a function or an endpoint in Flask RESTful. Okay, now this is the way this Flask RESTful is designed. I'm not saying this is always true for every other framework. I'm saying you can create, if you want to create APIs in a particular fashion defined by Flask RESTful, okay, then you become what I would say, then you become carefree that okay, the API that I've created is a REST API, because Flask RESTful inherently takes care of that. Okay, so what do you need to know in Flask RESTful? You need to understand how resourceful routing is created, right? So how do you create a method and how do you map it with a particular endpoint? That is the first thing. Second thing is, how do you parse argument? All right. So let's say if you want to provide some data with the endpoint, generally in case of post method, put method, right? So where this is the place where you are either adding some data to the database or making changes. So you always tend to add some data with the request, right? Now you need to create backend that handle that request, that handle that data, right? So an API should have capability to parse the arguments that are provided. Argument means data, the data that is provided with the request. The API should be able to parse it, understand it, and make use of it. So how do we do that? With the help of something called as recparse. This is a class created by Flask RESTful, provided by Flask RESTful, that is helping you to do this concept or do this utility called as argument parsing. Okay, so what is argument parsing? It is a way of making an API to understand the data which is coming with the request. Okay, and then formatting output. Not very much important when it comes to quiz and everything. You might see 1 or 2 questions in 2-3 papers, across 2-3 papers. So formatting output is not that important, but still we have added that because we cover in sessions. All right, so in the live sessions, whatever practical sessions we take, we cover that. Okay, so these are the 3 things that you need to understand. And then how do you communicate with APIs? Because when it comes to browser, you are limited to either using the get method or the post method. Right? What if I want to make or test an API that handles that gets handled with the put method? How do I want to how do I test an API that handles get delete method or patch method for that matter, right? So all these 3 methods or these 3 HTTP verbs cannot be triggered with a browser. So you need to have a third party element that allows you to do that, right? The third party application that allows you to do that. In our case, we do that with the help, either with the help of curl or with the help of postman, right? Why curl? Because in this session itself, earlier we have discussed that curl is something. It is a utility that not only allows us to make a request to the web using command line, it also allows us to specify the data that we want to send and also the method that we want to send it with, right? So it will help you to so the structure in which a curl, I think this is open already, right? So a structure of curl command is not only the endpoint or the URL that we want to hit. It also specify that we are also providing some data, right? It also specifies the method with which we are trying to do it. Okay, and probably one of the examples I'll show you the data part. Sorry, the method part. HTTP headers is mostly handling the form part. Get no. Post method. Okay, it is doing that with the URL encoded part. Okay, let me give you this part also. Curl post method. Okay, so you basically have a flag called -x for providing the method. Okay, let us see the Stack Overflow because this is probably better, right? So let's say if I want to send this data over a put method or over a post method, how do I explicitly provide method? With the help of this flag -x. All right. So this curl utility is something that not only allows us to make a request to an endpoint or a URL, right? It helps us to provide certain flags and define the request in a better way, right? So I can define what type of data it accepts. I can define what kind of method we are trying to put. This is the data, right? So -d refers to whatever follows the -d flag will give you the data that we are trying to send, and whatever follows the -x will tell you the method that you are going to provide, right? So now this is irrespective of browser, right? So you can decide whether I want to send get method or post method or put or delete, right? So curl is one of the utility that does that, and then we have applications that do that. When we go back to the slides. Yeah, so there's this application called Postman or Thundercline, right? So probably in the live session when we were teaching you APIs, you may have come across this thing called Postman and Thundercline. So these are 2 agents that allow you to make HTTP requests with a particular method with a particular data, right? So now the request becomes very much customizable Okay, so you can decide what should be the method, how should the data go, how are the other headers provided, what should be the URL, right? So such customization is not possible with browser, right? And therefore, these tools are therefore important because the whole idea of API is to be able to create endpoints that send you JSON, of course, but they also handle multiple endpoints, sorry, multiple HTTP verbs, because at the end of the day, we need to follow this REST principles. Okay, one of the major requirement of REST principle is you try to use HTTP verbs with their conventional use. Okay, what do I mean by that? Use get to retrieve data, use post to send data, use put and patch to update data, and use delete to delete data. So this is the conventional definition of HTTP verbs. And if the endpoints are also defined in doing the same task at the backend, then it is a RESTful API. I mean, it is one of the requirement of RESTful API. Okay, so therefore, Flask RESTful helps you to do that, right? And therefore, obviously, to test this APIs, we need things like curl, postman. You can give a slash and add Thunder client also. So Thunder client is basically a VS Code extension. Okay, you can open VS Code, go to extensions, download Thunder client. I'm not going into it because we obviously may have done it in live session, definitely. Okay. So this is about week 6, where we deal with APIs. So what is important when it comes to coding part questions, where you see most of the questions: resourceful routing and endpoint mapping, okay, argument parsing, and in some minor cases you'll see Marshall with, right? So that is deciding how do you want to output the data. All right, you can decide on how do you do that. You don't need to have Marshall with decorator always, but okay, this is a way of doing things with Flask RESTful. Okay, so it has a specific way of doing things. It has defined its own methods for doing things. Therefore, we are using that. Okay, so this is about week 6. Okay, any doubt till this point? Any question you want to ask this till this point? Go to back to meet. Yeah. Okay, yeah, Imanshu, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, like week 6 and week 5, and a lot of things like which are not covered in videos, and like I didn't see this term live session. Uh, so like SQL alchemy, sessions management, and this like direct command SQL execution is also there. I mean, I saw something simply like this, and like this Marshall and what was that? So where I can get these things? Can you suggest some
No,
resources?
these are the same. Okay, yeah. So where you can get same thing, right? So as I said, these are hyperlinks, right? So let's say if I click on this, it will take you to a session where we have covered this. Okay,
Okay.
so yeah, so this is one of the applications that we have created using Flask RESTful. And yeah, so this timestamp is also there, right? So this will from here onwards you will see how Marshall with sorry, how request parser works, how Marshall with works. You see these 3 things imported here. So this will give you how to use it. Okay, so yeah, so if you have not seen any of these things in the live sessions that we have covered this time, probably you'll get it either in the best live sessions. If you don't see that there, you will see here in the hyperlinks. Okay,
Oh,
that is the reason we have give this document, so that you don't waste time in finding resources, because there are multiple sessions, right? So yeah, so you can just go through here. So let's say if I go to formatting output, you will go to that part of video where we cover the Marshall with a decorator. Okay,
oh,
Marshall with decorator, right? So this is argument, right? So this is request parsing, and in the further part, let me just go to that part. Yeah, so you see this user output. This is how you create Marshall. This is how you create fields for marshalling. Okay, and then there is this decorator. Later on, you'll use a decorator called @Marshall with to define the output. Okay, so the complete usage is given in this video. Okay.
yes.
This link
And
is provided to you in the Solvay instructor source code. This PPT's link.
what about that database? I mean, SQL alchemy, because there is DB session also, which like in just Squish 2, they use that DB session for querying, which I know because I done my project, but didn't see in lectures or live session?
In okay, let me just open that also. Let's say front end. Only from there I should be
Himanshu, I
able to
think it
take
is
you.
there in the screencast.
A screencast. Okay.
Yes, SQL Alchemy as well as Marshall with is discussed. Is demonstrated, in fact.
Okay. Then. Maybe I
I'll
missed
just
that.
open the front end and show you. Give me a minute. 6. Okay, sorry. This is, we have to open this term also. So it is going to be 2582. 2582. Yes, I got live sessions. Alright, so you see this week 5 part 1. So this these are comparatively longer. These are comparatively longer sessions. So you see this is a 3-hour session, and then the other one is also around 3 hours. So this completely covers the SQL alchemy part. Okay, so you can refer to this.
Okay.
Yeah. So any other yeah. So any query regarding first 6 weeks? Any previous year question? Any confusion you have that we can discuss on?
Sir, one thing, just like prepare something for this web accessibility principle, some exact thing that you can describe to us, maybe for next session.
Web accessibility principles. So this is something that is covered in W3C. So if you go to week 2 slides, you might have access to week 2 slides. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. So in the week 2 slides, in one of the slides, we have given the links. The professor himself has added the links to W3C, worldwide
Okay.
W3 consortium. Okay. So all the accessibility principles are given them, where these 4 things are covered, right? Perceivable, operable, all these things are covered.
Okay.
Okay, now when it comes to that question, I'll have to check. Okay, I'll
Hmm.
probably in the next session I'll give you an explanation why was that answer given on what context, or if that was incorrect, right? So in every end term paper, there is a chance that 1 or 2 questions sometimes become incorrect.
Hmm.
So
And
if that is the case, we'll clarify.
class itself have lot of functions in its
Mhm.
main class. I mean main module. So like
Mhm.
I have seen a few PYQ which use some functions which are not very common. I never saw them in any live session or
Mhm.
so, can you list out few which you can say okay these many if you master then yeah you can do the PYQ or I mean this paper.
Yeah, right. So see, okay, first is obviously render template, right?
Render okay.
Render template. I'm just writing in chat. Okay, then there is a redirect. Okay, then you will always see something called as URL for.
Hmm.
Okay, so URL for is something that you will generally use with redirect. Okay,
Hmm.
so these are 3 things that you would generally use together. So you may have seen, you may have heard the discussion when I was talking about API, right? Then
Hmm.
there is something called as JSONify.
Sorry, sorry.
This is something that you'll use when it comes to creating APIs, because JSONify means you try to convert it into something that
Yes.
is you're trying to convert something into JSON. All right, and when you do that, you are expecting a result to be a JSON. And when is that done? In APIs, right?
Hmm. Yes, yes.
Okay, then there is something called as okay, so one of the method that you will see that I talked about in the request or argument parsing, right? So there is something called as request. So basically, this object is called as rec parse, and this rec parse has this method called a request parser.
That is API related.
Yeah, that is API related. Okay, request parser. Then you have add argument.
And argument.
Okay, then you have add resource. Okay, then you have so we are
Or
done with this.
context like test context, the test request context, and app context. Those things are also there.
Not really, not really. You don't need to worry about that, because see, those things will come when you are actually creating the project. Okay. For the snippets, question wise snippets, those things are not really important. Okay. So generally you will see in the questions, you will not see in maximum questions, you will not see if name equals to me, right? Because it is a question. We are dealing with very specific set of code. We are not writing the entire application. Our code is not modularized, right? So you will not see those things.
And
Okay.
abort there.
Yeah, abort is there, of course. Abort is there. Then request object is there, right? So there is request.form, right? Request.args.
Hmm.
Okay. Then you will see sys.rgv. These are the methods that you will mostly see in AppDev 1. Okay. Okay. Now we have covered sys.rgv. Yeah. Then there is this render method, which is a part of Jinja 2, but Jinja 2 with Python, not the Flask part. Okay. Week 3.
Okay.
Okay, then moving forward, when we go to security, so security is not required when it comes to project, but you can always expect some questions. So when it comes to security, you will see login user.
Hmm.
Okay,
User
login
load.
user, similarly logout user. Okay, then there is okay, then you need to understand the idea of what secret key is. All right, then session. Okay, so these are the terminologies that are very, prominently used in that particular week. Okay, then when you go to testing, in testing, you will not see so many methods, but you will see things like markers. Okay, then you will see things like keywords. Okay, so this is markers, keywords. Week 11 is mostly theoretical, so you don't see a lot of programmatic part there. And week 12 is on the version control, so we don't get into a lot of details of Git, because we only do it superficially, so we don't go into a lot of details of Git. Some basic Git commands will be given to you. Are they there in Solver source code? I'm not sure, because
Yes,
week 12 I've not taken.
last week, Satyanarayan sir gave a
Satyanarayan
basic,
sir. Yeah. So
yeah,
the
gave a
whatever commands he has given, just have an understanding of it. We'll not go into very tricky part of it, because we ourselves have not gone into details in teaching, right? So we don't go into it. Okay. Now every method that you will see, when it comes to SQL alchemy. Okay. SQL alchemy, every method is important, because the whole idea is to be able to connect with database and interact with it. Okay, so all the methods used in SQL alchemy will be important. Things like filter by, getter 404, query, db.session, db.add all these things. Okay, these things are covered in live sessions, practical live sessions especially. So you
Okay.
have to go through that.
About the date time module, like in quiz 2, it was used extensively, like about 4.5 and 3. So 7.15 marks question with SQL alchemy, and that heavily relied on date time module, delta and dot is. So
Yeah, but okay, so that's fine, but it is a Python module, right? So it is expected to you to have some understanding of it, because you deal with date time a lot. All right. So again, in that, if you see datetime.now, datetime.utc, now I'm not sure if that is there or deprecated, but
that is
datetime.now,
still
datetime.time delta. You will see this more often. And from the question statement itself, you'll understand in what context they're used.
okay.
Right.
And
So yeah. So and then datetime.strf time, right? So it is to format the time in a particular format. Okay. We don't expect you to know all the format also. We will tell you. The question will give you an idea on, okay, why is it formatted? Okay, then in next session we will give you some basics of logging, right? So in the logging, try to understand the logging levels. Okay.
yes. Like the other things are okay, which you will cover in next week. I mean next session also, after like logging and testing. But it's just class set, maybe not even API, just class with normal page rendering. Is set
Mm-hmm.
complete, because maybe it's not.
No, no. So what about Flask? What are you saying?
I mean the page rendering part, week 4, week 5, like
Mm-hmm.
whatever class they have covered.
Mm-hmm.
So the method you listed is
Mm-hmm.
this complete set or just a hint?
Yeah, most probably it will cover everything. Okay, most probably it will cover everything. So what we did not, what I have not written here is, okay, let me check the error handling part, right? App dot error handler. But okay,
Yes.
that method is self-explanatory. You put the
Yes.
error
Yes.
code inside. That's all,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that I have not added here. Then and see in the Flask itself. Maximum question will not be directly or simply done on Flask. If it is, it will be a very simple question. But if you are looking at some complicated question, they will come in conjunction with this database, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I have mentioned every SQL alchemy method.
Okay. Okay. Sir.
All right. So if you have that idea, then it will be easy. So see, the idea is you need to understand how can I pass data to a request. So when I make a request to a server, how can I pass data to it? Okay. And if I'm sending a data with in a particular fashion, how does I write a code that the backend handles it? Okay. Now this is statement. Let me give you an example. Okay. For example, if I'm creating an endpoint, something like this slash user slash name. Okay, pardon me. So it has to be a closing angle bracket.
Okay.
Okay, slash user slash name. So what do we understand with this? We are trying to make an endpoint that is user, where user is common, but the name can change, right? It is a dynamic name or dynamic value that is provided. Now, can my endpoint handle that dynamic part is the question, right? So you need to understand if this kind of endpoints are given. So what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to pass this data, right? So if I'm trying to pass this data through endpoint, how do I create an endpoint that handles this? It should be able to handle this, means it should be able to understand, analyze, parse this data and make some changes with it. That is one thing. Okay, if I look at slightly change it, this is going to be the other way. Okay, so here also I'm providing name, but the way of handling this URL at the backend is different.
So request arcs. Okay.
Right?
Uh,
That is one thing.
Sir, I mean, these things are okay, but like, what happens if, let me ask you, what will happen if I pass two errors in error handler as a comma separated value? Will it take it or produce another error and not handle it?
No. So, okay. So if you, for that, you need to understand whether it accepts or not, right? So you have to go to the app.error-handler methods documentation. Okay.
Yeah,
So if
that
you go to, yeah. So if you go to Flask documentation, there will be a section of error handling, right? So it will tell you the error handler method, and it will give you all the options, all the arguments, or the required arguments and the optional arguments for that. All right. Now the thing is, if you look at it, what you are trying to do with this app.error-handler method, what are you trying to do? If this particular status code occurs, how should my application react to it? Right? If this occurs, how should my application react to it? In practical cases, for a particular request, there can be only one possible status code. Right?
But
It
different
can
cases.
be anything. It can be 400, it can be 500, it can be 201, it can be 200. But at any particular request, any one particular request, the response will have only one status code, right?
But
So it
you know,
the method should be created in a way that it should handle, okay, if this particular status code appears, what I should do. Okay.
yes, is
Hmm.
like not. It is in contrast with like quite opposite how the except keyword works in Python, because that
Hmm.
have tuple based error handling. Like you can give it a tuple and as another tuple to reassign the alias for whatever
Correct.
those names are cut. Yeah, so that takes tuple, but this does not.
Yeah.
So
So, yeah. So I understand, but the thing is, when you write an except, so this in that case, you're doing it in the programming language, right? So it can be a compilation error, right? But here we are not talking about compilation error. We're talking about network errors, the errors that come with a particular request. Okay, and
compilation
with
error,
one particular request, there can be only one error associated,
I
or whatever.
yeah, I mean, both are runtime error. Like compilation error is just syntax or indentation error. That is a separate thing. Like I can provide value error and type error, zero division error,
Right.
all in a same except block as a comma separated value. Do a else and then uh, E1, E2, E3, colon, and then handle those things. Some of any of these have occurred. I can say something
Yeah,
like
so,
that.
so obviously that is how the structure is designed, right? So if I mean it's like you're questioning why a particular methods handle something and takes this as an argument and does not take as an argument, right? So
My
it
question.
depends on how it is created, right? So for example, if I'm creating a function and I'm saying my function will take one argument, okay, nobody can question you why only one, right? Why not multiple? So that's
Yeah,
what. So there it is. It depends on the way they are developed, the way the developers or the creators of that method or the structure or the keyword is defined. Right? The way they have defined, you have to follow it.
sir, like why I asked this question, I put this thing here because see, if I don't know error handler, like nobody mentioned it in previous quiz two before that. So fortunately, there was only one error. But if there were more than one, what my intuition will say, okay, this is error handler. This will be similar to Python error handler, and it can handle tuple based error, and it won't.
Yeah, I
This is what.
understand that, but then see,
Yeah.
documentation is therefore given, right? You have to go through
I think it is
documentation.
there in
So that is
screencast
why
also.
I asked.
Error handler.
Huh?
Error handler is there everywhere. Like it is taught.
Where?
I have it in my screencast notes, like code. That means it was taught.
Screencast this week.
Probably week 5, week 6 only, because the complete Flask part is covered there only. I don't recall exactly, but week 5 screencast where so there is a place in Flask screencast where we write or where we cover the modularization of code. Okay,
Hmm.
so modularization will tell you how to break the entire code into multiple modules, connect them together, and also do the error handling when it comes to Flask. Okay, so then there is this try and accept also. I think in some cases that is also covered. But see, these are Python things, so we don't do that in detail. But when it comes to a web error handling, I think that part might be covered. If not here, then obviously in one of the live sessions it is covered.
Okay.
Okay, if it is not covered, see, that's what. If it is not covered, it is definitely probably given to you in the documentation. Okay, so you have to just go through documentation. I understand documentation is very vast. You cannot go through each and everything. You cannot by heart each and everything. You cannot practice on each and everything. Okay, but there are certain topics that we generally tell you to go, right? So for example, here in Jinja, week 3, while there is a documentation on Jinja, we tell you, okay, we explicitly tell you, okay, go through filters because there are questions on filters. You might not use it a lot into the into actual project making, but yeah, when you want to write a good code, then why not use the utilities provided? And that's why we explicitly tell you to go through filters. Okay, like that. So whichever things are covered and we want you to go through it, not only because the questions come on it, but also when you actually work on go ahead and work on project, you not only should just do a task for the sake of doing. You have to write a modular code. So a code has to be well written. A code has to follow the guidelines on how easy it is or hard it is to understand, right? There is no repetition in the code. Modularization is done in a way that there is no circular imports. So all these things are something that will come when you practice more, and that is the reason we just give you pointers to so that you can go through it and understand, because everything cannot be taught. Okay, so we try to cover everything in screencast, in live sessions. All right, so you have to go through live sessions, at least the best live sessions given by us, in quite detail and practice everything. Okay, so then it will be more. Again, live sessions will not cover everything, right? So based on that, you will come across certain things which are neither covered in live session, not anywhere else. But then you will then go to documentation. Okay, and I'll tell you, whatever you do, there will be one question that you are not able to solve, right?
Yeah.
There will be one question in paper that you may have not covered. Okay, I'm not saying because we are not teaching it, but the content is vast. You have to see a lot of things. You have to see the intricacies of everything, right? You may not be able to recall everything during paper. So one or two questions are going to be always like that you tend to forget or skip, right? So yeah, so you just have to make the most of it. Whatever you understand, if the conceptually whatever you understand is correct, then you should be able to solve most of the questions. Okay, nobody will tell you you'll be able to solve all the questions, right? But most of the questions.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Any discussion? All right, so you just go through the content that this PPT that I've just provided. The reason why we are taking this session a bit slightly earlier in this week itself is because although we are delayed, it should have happened on Saturday itself, but due to why we could not. But let's say we are doing it now, right? So that you can go through these sessions and try to once you go through this session again, come back to the questions which you were facing issues with, and then you try to solve those. Probably at least 6 out of 10, 8 out of 10 you will be able to solve. Okay.
Sir,
So
I have gone through your Git session and like how should I say, but most of the things you were doing were not very accurate in that session. Like I saw that it's quite confusing and like you yourself doing was quite mess there in that session, and it
which one?
is
Git?
even in best live session of Git.
No, which session on Git?
Git. It was quite messed up there. So yeah, I mean, I have no problem, but uh, in the next session, just if you have time, then take that also a little bit.
Okay, I'll
Uh,
check that. I'll check that. See, because we will. So what we also do is we tag the session, right? What kind of concepts are covered in a particular session, and that also is one of the markers on why we have selected a particular session, right? Uh, it is nearly impossible to go through each and every part of the session and see if there was any issue. Okay, if you nice that you brought that up, I'll go through the session and see if there was any issue which was not conveyed correctly and replace it with a better session. Okay.
like in this document also, they say that it is check out -f, restore all files to the previous version. That is okay, but what this -f flag is to force. So even if there is some merging conflict, just ignore it and rewrite everything. But it's overlooked in the document, and the session have lot of this kind of things which like conveyed quite differently, like what it is doing actually and what it been told there.
Okay, fine. So I'll just go through it, and if possible, we'll change it with a better one, because so see, sessions keep on coming. Probably some other instructor may have covered it in quite detail. So I'll just go through it, and then we will replace it. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah. And regarding PyTest, you will take it on next session, right?
Yes, PyTest is a part of week 10, I think, right? Testing.
Week
Yeah.
10,
So
yes.
Yes, yes.
So it have like this few things which are not very clear, like what -k does, and something like a few more things like that, and the context size which
I
is
think it's number of
protectable.
substrings you can take.
Huh?
K minus K is that number of substrings, I think.
Number of
no. So basically, -k stands for keyword. So whatever you provide after -k flag will be taken as a keyword, and whatever functions you create has that part. Whatever you put keyword is a substring. It will be retrieved. Okay,
okay.
so we will one of the sessions we have covered. I mean, in every PyTest
I
session we covered keywords, markers, how they are different, how they are
but
similar, all those things.
this information is not quite correct. What you just said, because what happens here, I also assume that, and but what happens here first goes collection phase. After collection phase, all the tests, starting with test things, come to that collection list or collection set, and then after that filtering happens with -k in
Hmm.
that collected set,
Hmm.
and that filtering is done on module name colon colon class name colon colon function name, and on that
Yeah. Of course.
string
Yeah.
set.
No. So I was just talking about the keyword, right? How it works. I'm not talking in general. So let's say, obviously, so these keywords. So there is a concept of One is the concept of some recognizing a particular file or a function as a test function,
Yeah.
and then once the recognition is done, then you select or deselect.
Yeah,
Right? So
collection
there
and
is an entire, yeah. So there is this entire concept of thing. So markers, keywords obviously work on obviously the selected functions. So you will also see in the test results, you will see you will not directly see passed or failed. Okay, you will also see selected, deselected, passed, failed, all those
selected.
things.
Yes.
Okay, so it obviously works on the selected functions. One for the keywords and for the markers to actually work, the functions that we are working on should be a test functions, recognizable functions which can be recognized by PyTest module. Okay, and the markers and keywords will be applied on those.
Yes.
All right. So in the live sessions we have covered, in one of the live sessions we have covered it quite in detail. See, I will. we have given you best live sessions, but see, what is probably best for you may not be best for everyone, right? Or what is probably
Yeah.
best for me, what I feel is best, may not be best for you, right? So you always have access to the entire playlist, right? You can go to the Madvan channel. I'll just paste the link if give me a minute. So it also has links to previous year's live session, which may or may not be a part of best live sessions. Okay, so you can always go through that, and you then have a reference of 3-4 session together, and then you take, right. So what happens is generally students do not obviously as a student, if I'm student working on 3 courses parallelly, I may not be able to go through each and every session with a similar content, right? But if you find time to do that, you can definitely go through it. Okay, just give me a minute. I'll just share the link for Madvan channel itself. Okay, all right. So,
Sir, it will come in the search. If you search Mad1 and filter by channel, it will be there. It will be there.
generally
And
I
apply.
have it as a, yeah. So,
Just
okay, we'll go to
channel.
this
Yeah.
and then we'll go to channel itself. Yeah, so this is the channel, right?
Hmm.
All right, so what I'm trying to say is, let's say if you go to playlist,
Hmm.
all right, so if you go to playlist, ignore the first videos, but you see, okay, Madvan Jan 25 theory, then again you will see Madvan Jan 24 project sessions, theory sessions, then again you will see for the May, right? So you have a set of 3-4 terms together to actually compare and see which one works for you. Okay,
Yes.
may not be possible for everybody to go through it each session thrice, but if you have time, definitely go through it and then figure out the best one for you. Okay, so don't completely while we feel that you can rely on the ones that we have given, but if any data is inaccurate, which is definitely possible at any point, try to bring it up like this the way you have done, or you can just refer to some other sessions, right? It
Yes.
depends.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, so as I said, this particular document which I was working with, this one, right? So this has already been shared to you in Solve with Instructor source code, May 25. All right. So not only this, but this is a part of. So we'll be continuing with this only, right? So there is this week 7, week 8, all the 12 weeks part is there. If you're done with this, if you feel that okay, I'm confident in first 6 weeks, you can again go back to the further weeks and watch the sessions or content from there itself. Okay, so don't have to wait for it. This entire thing is added. You can refer to it before or during before your end term anytime. Okay, so it is by the name end term revision. Okay, and it is added to your Solve with Instructor source code. So you can always refer to it whenever you want. It will be here. Okay, Solve with Instructor source code, and when you go to download, you will again be redirected. Okay, and somewhere here, this is May 25. Yeah, where have I added May 25? Okay, is this wrong folder? No, this is fine.
Yes,
Why don't I
this
see it
one,
here?
end term revision PDF, this is the
You've gone to this is Mat 2, right?
No, this is Mad one only. This is,
this.
This is
as you
Mat
can
1,
see.
the other one, the other one which you are trying to access.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay, okay.
video
Is
titles.
it? Yeah, this is Mad 2. Okay, fine. 3. So here, if you go to supplementary content and within solve with instructor source code, go to this. Yeah, here. Right, so it will redirect you to the same folder and you can refer from it.
Yes.
All right. So if there are no more queries, we'll stop it here and we'll continue in the next session. So remaining week 7 to week 12.
So we will meet once more on Wednesday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll see who comes in, but we will be continuing with the same content.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll meet once more before the end term. And so why is that? Because, so let's say after Wednesday, you get 3 more days to work on the content and then, revise. So what happens generally, we have observed students wait for the revision sessions. They have some queries and doubts, but then they have to wait till Saturday. So we wanted to avoid that situation. Get those things clarified before itself, and then you can practice.
You understand the psychology well.
Yeah. So yeah, so that happens. That was with the request. The students made that request. We used to have, like in quiz, we used to have revision sessions in on Saturdays also. Saturdays only. But then many students had this problem. Sir, I have a doubt, but I had to wait till Saturday to get it clarified. That's why we try to shift it as early as possible, especially for end term, because then you get time to work on it.
Sir,
Okay, then
mock,
I'll stop sharing
did
here.
we get it?
Thank you very
Mock,
much.
not really, because see, first 8 weeks you get an idea, right? And remaining weeks like 9, 10, 11, 12, 2 of those are theory, right? So we don't generally focus on questions on theory. And so you kind of get an idea of how questions are asked and all. And there is a pool of previous some questions. So that's why
Oh.
mock we don't really work on it. Okay.
Thank you, sir. It was
Okay, then.
nice
All right.
talking. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, definitely. So these discussions not only help you, but who has the doubt, but everybody else who helps. Sorry, everybody else who joins, right? Okay. So we will meet. So whoever instructor takes the session, we'll meet on Wednesday again for the remaining part. Okay. So the remainder 6 weeks, 7 to 12, we will cover there. Okay. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll close it
Thank
here,
you, sir.
and best of luck for your end term. Okay.